Expand Your Horizon Preview Edition for the Horizon League games, starting on Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025, and ending on Sunday, December 7th. I'm your host, Bob McDonald, and joining me is my co-host, Jim Sarro.
Hey Bob, let's get after this. Conference season is beginning. We're going to see who's really going to set themselves apart and get themselves set up with, a couple of early season conference games here.
Absolutely. And as they were last season, the Expand Your Horizon Preview Edition is sponsored by the Horizon League, who wants to remind you to make your plans to be in Indy March 8th through the 10th for the 2026 Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. After you get all the insights for us here at the Horizon Roundtable, visit horizonleague.com for championship information, merchandise, life in the league stories, golden hour content, and much more. Remember, March starts here in Indianapolis at Corteva Coliseum, March 8th through the 10th. And so let's go ahead and get started with the games that start on Wednesday. We'll start with the 6:30 p.m. Eastern game, where Wright State is traveling to Zidane Family Arena to play Youngstown State. And these are two teams that definitely have different approaches to the season. Youngstown State has been a team that has prided themselves on doing very well in the transfer portal, and so far in the non-conference season, we've seen a lot of contributions from those transfer portal guys. It looks like that Youngstown State has really working on having 10 guys in their rotation. Conversely, you got a Wright State team that has been really on the ball in terms of leveraging their talent. No matter how old they are, one of their top scorers is a freshman, Michael Cooper.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating matchup of two teams that are proving to be two of the better ones in the league. You've got Wright State a little bit more methodical in their offense and the speed that they play versus Youngstown State. Youngstown State, like Wright State's more of just like really balanced. Their offense is good but not great. Their defense is good. They kind of make you work for it. Youngstown plays a little bit faster, a little bit sloppier at times, but a deeper team. I really like this matchup, and this is going to be an important one. I think later in the year, based on how things have set up so far, the winner of this game getting that win is going to look big in the standings, come February, based on how both teams are playing right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So moving on to the 7 o'clock Eastern games, we've got three of them on Wednesday. Let's start out with Cleveland State traveling down to Truist Arena and Northern Kentucky. It seems like a tale of two teams here. They may share a similar mascot, Cleveland State being the Vikings, Northern Kentucky being the Norse, but Northern Kentucky seems to have had a lot more success non-conference wise than Cleveland State has, and it seems like Northern Kentucky has really stabilized a roster that we weren't sure what we were going to be expecting in the preseason. And it's come together relatively well, where Cleveland State has run into a lot of hurdles, working on specifically on their defense and also through injuries, because you had Trey Beard, who's been out, and you've had Josiah Harris, who has also been out as well.
Yeah, and what's concerning if you're a Cleveland State supporter, the defense, as we've talked about, hasn't been very good. And now you have an NKU team that's got definitely a souped up offense, and this will be a very interesting thing because Northern Kentucky, 85 points per game, much more efficient offensively than Cleveland State, or they're probably actually similar efficiency wise, but defensively, Northern Kentucky is still pretty solid, whereas Cleveland State is not. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with this one. If Northern Kentucky, who's on a little mini roll right now with a 5-game win streak, versus a scuffling Cleveland State, I think for me, I would be surprised if Cleveland State's able to give them a contest for 40 minutes.
And I'm also know for sure that Dan Goresger has probably got this game circled on his calendar, because Dan Goresger does really, really well against Cleveland State. So let's move on to the next 7 p.m. Eastern game, and it's at Callahan Hall. IU Indy, and the system is heading to Detroit to play Detroit Mercy. IU Indy is one of those teams that loves shooting the three-pointer, shoots the three-pointer pretty well, and that's juxtaposed against the Titans team that is not very good at shooting the three-pointer this year.
Yeah, well, this will be a really good. We've talked so many times about IU Indy and what their defense is going to bring, and you have a Detroit Mercy team that offensively is really scuffling right now, really struggling. They're shooting 24% from deep on the season. Scoring wise, they're I think bottom of the league in points per game, and so Detroit. If Detroit ends up hanging 100 on IU Indy, that could be pause for concern for the rest of the IU Indy season. But this is probably a game that, IU Indy coming off a pretty good game against Morehead State. I'm kind of interested to see what happens with this one, because you feel like IU Indy's made a little improvement, and then you have Detroit still struggling offensively. So it'll be fascinating to see if Detroit's able to get some buckets in this one.
I think the other thing too, this is going to be the first conference look at Ben Howland's system and how we know what he's going to do. We know what he's going to do with his team as far as the rotation is concerned. They're going to go 10 deep. And the concern that I would have for Detroit Mercy is, are they going to be able to withstand seeing five different guys every 2 to 3 minutes, and that might be a major concern for Coach Monty over at Detroit Mercy.
It'll be interesting too when you talk about seeing the system. I think of like when Antoine Davis came into the league with Detroit Mercy, and they started out the conference season out of nowhere, and they started out super strong. And it took a while for people to figure out what they were doing. And then once they got used to it, they were able to, kind of stop Detroit pretty quickly. It will be very fascinating to see, like, how long does it take the Horizon League to adjust to how IU Indy plays? I mean, they are number one in the country in tempo. So, that whole idea of playing fast, like they are implementing that. So it will be fascinating to see, can anybody actually slow them down? Can anybody, will they adjust to and be able to, implement their style of play? Because IU Indy, right, wrong, or otherwise, has definitely been able to impose their style on everybody that they've played against so far.
Sure, absolutely. All right, and rounding out the Wednesday games is a trip to the arena for Purdue Fort Wayne, as the Mastodons are going to be playing the Grizz up in Oakland. Now, the way that these two teams have been playing, Oakland has played, and we can't even sugarcoat it, it's been a grueling non-conference schedule, as it seems to be every year. But Oakland is riding a championship from the MTE they played in Montana, and they got a lot of they got a lot of really good pieces over at Oakland. But Purdue Fort Wayne, for some reason, historically, has played really well at the arena, and they got some weapons of their own, specifically their backcourt.
Yeah, they've got a three-headed monster in terms of guard play with Stevenson and Hadnot and DeAndre Craig. It's so hard to compare these two teams and know what you really have, because while Oakland's been out there playing the best teams in the country, they have the one of the highest strength. I think they're the number one strength of schedule according to KenPom.
Yeah.
You have Purdue Fort Wayne with 3 non-D1 wins of their 4 wins this season. So we really don't know what we have yet in Purdue Fort Wayne. We just know that they shoot a lot of threes. They want to score a lot of points. And if they're shooting well, they're going to be in a game. But if they're not shooting well, they've had plenty of games where they got thumped because they weren't able to make any buckets. So it will be interesting to see. But this won't be Cleveland State versus IU Indy in terms of scoring, but these are two of the top scoring teams in the league.
Yeah.
When you look at points as a team, I think Fort Wayne is 87 and Oakland is 83. The other 2 and 4 in points per game. So it'll be a fun game to watch if you want to just tune in and see good, entertaining basketball. This will be one to tune into.
So one of the other things I wanted to point out with this game is that, as we know over the years, Purdue Fort Wayne is big on turnover differential. They've won games, quite a few of them, by causing more turnovers than they commit. And that's going to be an especially large challenge against an Oakland team that has a guy like Brody Robinson running the point, who is leading the league in point to turn assist to turnover differential. And it's going to be a very interesting fight when you see a guy like that who is doing so well at the point go up against a team who is going to stop at nothing to try to get you to turn the ball over.
It's interesting too because Oakland, Brody Robinson is a great assist to turnover ratio, super good decision maker, and Oakland plays fast. So they're or faster, and so I don't think you can get Brody Robinson sped up. So I'm not
Yeah.
too worried about his ability to handle that. It's not like, if all of a sudden, if you're a real slow team, like let's say you're Green Bay, who's number 334 in the country in tempo, and now you go up against somebody who's, pressuring the ball and trying to get you to turn over, it's probably a bigger adjustment versus Brody Robinson. He's used to playing fast. So if you want to try to make him get sped up, you're probably not going to.
Sure. Sure. All right, well, let's move on to the Soul Thursday game on December 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern. We got Robert Morris. Robert Morris, who is playing a Green Bay team who has won as many games in November than they did all last season. So this is not the Green Bay of last year. So this and theoretically, we will be seeing the return of Marcus Hall, who has sat out the last few games with an ankle injury.
Yeah, the key storyline for this game, in my mind, Robert Morris with their big guys is the best rebounding team in the Horizon League in the non-conference play so far. And Green Bay is not a great rebounding team, but they're significantly better than they were last year. I mean, last year they were the worst or second worst in the league at any point in time. Right now they're kind of middle of the pack in rebounding. So we'll see what they're able to do on the glass against Robert Morris. But if they're able to rebound against Good and Chitakudis and all those guys that Robert Morris has, then there's an opportunity for Green Bay to continue on their winning streak. But if they're not able to compete with those big bodies, if they don't get anything from Bethea or Cicic, or if they go small, which I know Coach Gottlieb loves to go small and basically make the opposing team take out one of their bigs, bring in a guard to match up with Green Bay. If they're able to rebound going small, then it really favors Green Bay because I don't think that Robert Morris has as much guard depth as Green Bay does. But it's going to be a fascinating game. If Green Bay wants to show they're for real, they're going to have to be able to compete on the glass. If they don't, they're going to get walked right out the door of the Crest Event Center.
Correct. And you mentioned the guard play. I mean, we're talking. We're going to be featuring two guards on both sides of the court. Albert Vargas is kind of proven himself to be the point guard for Robert Morris. But look, let's also talk about Preston Reinger. Preston Reinger also has an outstanding assist to turnover ratio, and I think that's been pretty understated, really. And so I think that matchup is going to be a good one as well. And I think that's going to be something to be watching out for too.
Yeah, Preston has definitely stepped it up in terms of his assist to turnover. I mean, he didn't play that great with turnovers against Haskell. He made a couple of, the pass was maybe a decent idea, but if it's not a sure thing, he had been good about not forcing the issue, and he had a couple against Haskell. But prior to that, he was money against Iona and UMass. When I was down to the Virgin Islands, a couple of fans from other teams were like, "Oh, I really like the way that guy plays. Like he's feisty and smart, and he's having a great season." And now he's starting to hit his 3-pointers. He was really struggling. He was like 20% to start the season, sure. And he's been really hitting big threes for him. It's almost like a weight came off his shoulders, and it's a different player than we've ever seen in Green Bay. So this will be a fascinating matchup. Preston has a little bit of size advantage over Al Vargas, probably like 4 inches of height, and Preston's built. So he's not like a fast lateral mover, but he's a big guy to get around. And so it'll be a fascinating matchup between those two guys in a stand-alone Horizon game on Thursday night.
That's right. That's right. All right. Before we get into the Saturday games, once again, make your plans to be in Indy, March 8th through the 10th for the 2026 Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. After you get all of the insights from us here at the Horizon Roundtable. Visit horizonleague.com for championship information, merchandise, Life in the League series, golden hour content, and much more. Remember, March starts here in Indianapolis at Corteva Coliseum, March 8th through the 10th. So let's go ahead and get into the Saturday games. We kick everything off at 2 p.m. Eastern, where Detroit Mercy is traveling to the Wolstein Center to play Cleveland State. I hesitate to say this is going to be a battle of two of the bottom teams in the league, but situation being as it is, it looks like unfortunately that's where we're at.
Well, same thing applies for Detroit Mercy here. Cleveland State, not a great defensive team. Detroit, not a great, hasn't been really able to score. So it'll be a really interesting to see which of these two can, can Detroit start scoring, or will Cleveland State dig in on defense? I mean, whichever one does that is going to be able to win that game. But for Detroit Mercy, who has been struggling to score, you probably couldn't have asked for better two teams to start the conference against, because if you maybe get that offense clicking a little bit and get a little confidence is a magnificent drug. And it'll be very fascinating to see if they're able to score some buckets here against the two teams that give up the most points in the league.
I think the concern for Detroit Mercy is who are the guys who are going to counteract Dan Nessa and Josiah Harris for Cleveland State. I mean, you got Legend Jeter for sure, but who's going to be that second guy? Who's going to be that second guy to kind of counteract what Harris and Nessa can do? And I think that's going to be a major concern for Detroit Mercy.
Yeah, I think like London Maiden has kind of been playing a little bit more and getting some opportunities as a big guy, but I don't see him being able to match up against like Nessa. Like they don't seem like they're compatible matchups to me. Sure. So that is a great point, Bob, that you're bringing up.
Yeah, that's the other problem with Nessa and Harris is they are not shy about scoring perimeter shooting either. They will score. They will attempt to score from wherever, and that's going to be another kind of wrinkle to that as well. Moving into the next 2 p.m. Eastern game, that's going to be Northern Kentucky. They're heading to Fort Wayne to play Purdue Fort Wayne. And that's going to be an interesting matchup in that I feel like this one's going to kind of be a defensive battle. With Northern Kentucky, Darren Horn has prided himself on his version of the zone defense. We've seen variations of that over years. It looks like with this particular squad, they've done a very good job in this almost new team with two guys, Dan Goresger and LJ Wells, being kind of the sole holdovers who played last year, to adjusting to that as evidenced by winning winning 5 games in a row before heading into the conference schedule. And that's going to be going up against a Purdue Fort Wayne team who, as we've mentioned, prides themselves and has historically prided themselves on being a 3-point shooting offense.
It'll be interesting because I feel like Northern Kentucky has a massive advantage with their interior play. Cale Robinson and LJ Wells. Who on Fort Wayne is going to step up and be able to match up with those guys? Like that's to me the big takeaway of the game, because there's good guards on both sides in this game. It'll be fascinating. It'll be super fun. Goresger, we've talked about the big 3 guards for Fort Wayne, but I feel like Northern Kentucky has enough guards with Goresger and O'Day that they can kind of go toe to toe with Purdue Fort Wayne's big 3. Sure. But who on Fort Wayne is going to step up against Wells and Cale Robinson? That's the question that I'm interested to see play out.
I think this is especially in the front court. I feel like this is actually a more evenly matched contest than you would think. To your point, LJ Wells and Cale Robinson are going to be the guys up front. I think Cale Robinson and Maximus Nelson, I feel like that's going to be a decent battle as far as that matchup is concerned. This is going to be one of those occasions where Darius Duffy for Purdue Fort Wayne is definitely going to need to step up and definitely battle with LJ Wells.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Duffy obviously been around the league a little bit. He's played against LJ Wells, so I haven't looked to see how he fared at Milwaukee against Northern Kentucky, but LJ Wells is at a different level than he's ever played. So whatever happened in the past between that matchup, you're gonna have to step it up more to slow down on LJ Wells because he's playing at a high level right now. So, but yeah, it'll be a fascinating game. What's the next one that's on the docket for Saturday?
It's another 2 p.m. Eastern game. This time it's going to be Youngstown State heading to Indianapolis to play IU Indy. Um, and this is an interesting matchup because we have seen that Youngstown State is definitely not shy at using their own 10-man rotation as IU Indy has. And so if there is a team that is definitely looking forward to seeing what the system does for them, especially from an offensive standpoint, because IU Indy hasn't been all that great defensive wise, it's Youngstown State.
Youngstown State has the third most three-pointers attempted on the season. So it'll be very, very fascinating to see, um, you know, how they do. If they're shooting, I mean, inside they have an advantage because they have great size, across the board. They got four or five
Sure.
big guys that can play, but then all their big guys can shoot. With you think of Rolf and Vlad, Chris Carroll, these guys can shoot. So this will be a
Even
very tough
Emmanuel
matchup.
Zorgval, the 7-footer, we've seen him go out beyond the arc himself too.
Yes, we have. And so it will be interesting. And then the other thing that's kind of fascinating, I'm looking at this. So Youngstown State's defense through 8 games, their opponents have only attempted 142 threes, which is the lowest in the league. And IU Indy through 9 games has attempted shooting 308 threes. So you've got an interesting matchup there in terms of we know IU Indy wants to get that three ball up. They want to get a lot of opportunities. And then you have Youngstown, who's done a good job of not allowing 3-point field goal shots to go up against them. So that's kind of a fun sidebar. But this will be a really good test for, for IU Indy because this is a very dangerous and deep Youngstown team that can play fast and likes to score. So we'll see how this matches up.
I feel like the key matchup I think is who is going to be on Finley Woodward, who is kind of IU Indy's facilitator. I feel like this is going to be a job Chris Carroll takes on.
Oh, totally. I can see that. And Chris Carroll's the perfect size and athletic ability. Like Finley Woodward, he doesn't look super athletic or whatever, but he's 6'7". And so in that point forward role, you need a guy that's, got enough size to match up. And Chris Carroll at 6'6" and strong and athletic is a great matchup for that. This will be a fun game to watch.
All right. And then the last game that we're on Saturday is an 8 p.m. Eastern game. Robert Morris is heading to Milwaukee to play the Panthers. And this is going to be one of these games where Milwaukee has struggled a little bit, and they definitely want. This is definitely a game at home that against a very tough Robert Morris team that they definitely want to come away with a win here, and they definitely need to make sure. This is one of those games where they need a guy like Amar Aguilar to be firing on all cylinders for sure.
Well, and Amar Aguilar and Seth Hubbard, who are their go-to pieces offensively. Those guys, sometimes maybe take some shots that don't look that great. You also have with Milwaukee, they've had a change in point guard because Isaiah Dorcius is kind of now starting where Pippa White had been starting. And so they're kind of figuring out who are their five? And we don't know the stats of Faison Fields. They got to figure out who their 5 guys are going to be, in that starting rotation and then get some cohesiveness because when you have guys like Amar Aguilar who can make difficult shots, it also leads to them. It's almost like he reminds me a little bit of like Jaden Stone for Detroit a couple years ago, who could make some really hard shots, but because he did that, he took a lot of really dumb shots too. And I'm not saying Amar Aguilar takes dumb shots, but sometimes those guys will put themselves in bad positions, whereas they're a little more patient. We'll see. You could find something a little bit better. So it'll be a very interesting matchup though, because you've got Milwaukee. Who's not necessarily playing the best right now. Their defense is really kind of struggling, but they're playing fast. And then you have Robert Morris, who plays a little bit slower, has a great playmaker in Al Vargas, but has probably an interior advantage. So we'll see what Danilo can do against Chittakudis and Good. This is going to be a good matchup. I live here in Milwaukee. I don't necessarily go to a lot of Panther games, but I could be talked into a 7 p.m. Saturday game. I'm in person.
Yeah. Well, one of the other concerns I think I have with Milwaukee, to your point with Chittakudis lining up against Jovanovic, is the glass. because who on Milwaukee is going to counteract Deshaun Good? And this is where we don't know what the status of Faison Fields is going to be for this game. So it may come to Sekou Kona to match up against a guy like Deshaun Good.
That would be a big step up. Both guys are young, but Kona's 8 games into his career, so he's got the right size. He's athletic and 6'8". He's a good matchup for Good, but Good has a lot more experience, has already proven where he's at. When they play this game at Robert Morris later in the season, I'd be fascinated to see how much better Kona is then versus he's good now, but he's the kind of guy that's just like oozes potential, and I think would be really a better matchup as the season goes along. He's got his legs under him a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So wrapping up this week of conference play is Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern. We got Green Bay. They're heading to the Nutter Center. They're going to play Wright State, and I think this is going to be a really big test for Green Bay. We've talked about kind of the progress they've made year over year, but I think against a Wright State team who is definitely stepped up, especially with their younger players. I mean, we talk about a guy like Michael Cooper, a freshman who certainly exceeded expectations this year. It's going to be a big test for Green Bay in terms of how they can match up against Wright State.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned for the Phoenix. We talked about in their preview with Robert Morris about rebounding. When you have Wright State has individually 2 of the best rebounders statistically in the league in Michael Amargbe. He had a boatload of rebounds against Butler, if I remember the box score correctly.
Yes.
And then he doesn't get the other player I'm about to mention doesn't get a lot of run on this podcast, but Andre Holden has averaging like 5.8 rebounds per game. And so you think about with Wright State playing at Wright State, which has been just a house of horrors for the Phoenix, quite frankly. They've struggled there for a long time. But you think about, again, they have to have somebody step up, and then that's not even accounting for Brian Atumnu, who's was going to be or supposed to be a really good rebounder and defender. So you've got this really good front court play, long athletic guys, and that's not really what Green Bay has on their roster. So guys like Hayden Wilkins and guys like Marcus Hall are going to really have to make a point to rebound the basketball or keep those guys off the glass. So that's kind of a fascinating subplot for me in this particular game.
Well, the other thing too, and I feel like this has to be a game where the bigger guys for Green Bay, because Wright State, they're very good at rebounding the ball, but they're not as big as some of their competitors. And in this case against Green Bay, this is an opportunity for a Cicic or a Ramel Bethea to step up and kind of counteract what Wright State has been doing on the glass. It's going to be a big test for them as well, I think.
Yeah, Bethea is a guy who he's got that length and he's just fast off the floor. He's definitely been drinking from the proverbial fire hose. He had a really nice game against Haskell. It's almost like the leap that he has made from not playing basketball to junior college to Division I is like, I don't think most of us can even begin to comprehend like what it's got to be like for Ramel, but we're starting to see him in moments where he's impacting the game. And when Virgin Islands, he didn't get a lot of playing time, but he got in there, he blocked a shot, got a rebound, made some free throws. He's figuring it out. There's a real good opportunity for him to make an impact. I don't know if it's going to be Sunday against Wright State, but I know that there's an opportunity for him this season to make an impact. He's coming kind of like Kona. I would love to see him match up against them the second time in Green Bay later in the season. He'll probably have more of an impact.
Yeah. All right, and that's going to wrap it up for our first episode of the new season here for Expand Your Horizon Preview Edition. Next episode will be kind of an abbreviated version. We've got 5 conference games spanning December 11th through December 21st. We will be dropping that on Mondays as we generally do, although there will be some exceptions this season because we've got some Monday games. But until then, you can always go to horizonroundtable.com. You can pull up previous episodes of this podcast as well as a regular podcast along with our articles. So tune in next week. Until then, thank you all for listening.